Hey, good morning, everyone. Having trouble remembering all the little buttons I'm supposed to push. Optimize things. So we're continuing with our series on the hindrances, and we're on the fourth hindrance, restlessness and remorse. But I'm just going to take a few minutes to back up here because Ellen asked a very good question on Tuesday night. We were talking about the various sort of antidotes or how to deal with the hindrances, which involved sort of thinking and various things. And her question was, what's this all about? I thought we were supposed to be letting go of thoughts and focusing our mind on our meditation object. So the answer to this is that this is a gradual training, and I'm just going to take a few minutes to review the gradual training, and then that helps put Ellen's question into, helps answer that question and put our meditation practice into context. So first of all, we have to hear the teachings. So the teachings have to be produced by someone. So the first thing we need is a Buddha, somebody who wakes up to the reality of the way things are and what's causing suffering. We need a Buddha to arise in the world. So in this world system, we have the Buddha Gautama, who was born about 2,600 years ago. And he figured this out, and he taught for 45 years. So we were very fortunate to have his teachings. And then he set up a group of monks and nuns who would carry on the teachings and pass them down through the ages. And so then we get to hear the teaching. So this is the second step in the gradual training. We get to hear them, and then we can get, feel some inspiration or some faith of, oh, maybe this can help me with, the suffering that I experience in my life. And so then it wants you to sort of progress or to explore this further. Then the next step is to live a virtuous life. So this means not harming self and others. So you're not physically or verbally harming others. You're not taking what is not given. You're not having inappropriate sexual relationships like with somebody else's partner or with somebody who's too young or somebody who can't make, doesn't have the cognitive facilities to make up their mind. Okay, give me some others. Yeah, so you're not making your mind heedless with drugs and alcohol, because the problem with drugs and alcohol is that it tends to make us heedless, and then we end up breaking all the other precepts. And then there's one more. Right, and not false speech, not lying to people. Okay, so this is step 3 in the gradual training, is to sort of clean up our speech and our behavior. And also to perhaps alter our lives so we're living a little bit more simply. So this can bring us a lot of joy because, not harming others, that's just such a huge gift to the world. And when you realize you're giving that gift to the world with your behavior, that can bring up a lot of joy in your life. The next step is cultivating contentment. So not always feeling agitated, wanting something you don't have, and not always feeling agitated, hating what is there. But cultivating contentment, just accepting that whatever the reality is of the moment, this is the reality, and making peace with it. The next is wise reflection in regard to our senses, like what we see and hear and taste and touch and smell and think. You don't want to be walking through a shopping center and everything you see thinking, oh, I can't be happy unless I have that, like right now. Or walking through the center, the shopping center and just saying, oh, people are, so many people, I can't stand all these people, or oh, it's so noisy, or look at all that garbage. Why aren't they cleaning up? Why are people throwing garbage? Like just letting your mind go out to all the sort of negative signs and just constantly getting yourself riled up and feeling upset. And we can do that with any of our senses. So that's the next step, wise reflection on with our senses, not letting them rile us up. The next is mindfulness and clear comprehension. So mindfulness is being aware of what's happening in the moment, but it's also remembering instructions that have been given to us of what leads to the end of suffering, what's wholesome, what's unwholesome. So remembering those instructions and then being mindful in the present moment. And clear comprehension is understanding what's the purpose, like what's my goal in doing whatever it is you're doing at the moment, and is it appropriate? Like, is it going to get me towards my goal or not? So that's clear comprehension. And so the Buddha is encouraging us to do that for every single movement, every single thing that we do in our lives. And then after all of this, we get to meditation, sitting on the cushion. So now this doesn't mean that we wait years and years to clean up our virtuous behavior, which for most of us, the last thing to go is the speech, how to have kind speech. So we can start meditating right from the beginning, but from the beginning, we have to realize that we're dealing with the sort of the gross hindrances, like desire and ill will and all those things. And so that's going to require more sort of busyness, in thinking about, like, investigating, thinking about it, doing this antidote, doing that antidote. So there's a lot more sort of busyness in the practice. But then once those sort of gross hindrances are settled down, then our practice, now we're not having the harsh speech, we're not, we're not physically doing harmful things or whatever. Now we're just left with the mind. And so now this is a more subtle practice. And so in our meditation practice now, it's becoming more quiet. We still have some work to do to let go of those subtle hindrances, but now is the time that we're, starting to just be with our meditation object and bringing ourselves into samadhi, into stillness, into the jhanas. But before we get to that point, when we still have the gross hindrances, then we've got more things to do. So is that sort of help to answer your question more fully?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. So does anybody have any questions on that, on this gradual training? Okay, so we'll carry on with today's topic, which is the fourth hindrance, the thing that hinders us from our meditation practice, which is leading us to the end of suffering, and that's restlessness and remorse. And it's got a really cute Pali name, Udacha Kukucha. Udacha Kukucha. I have trouble saying it. And the Buddha, as usual, has an analogy for each of these hindrances. And this is one, the analogy for restlessness and remorse is trying to see a reflection in water that's stirred by the wind. So you're not really able to see your reflection. So restlessness can be physical, it can be in our body, or it can be in our mind. And the remorse part is in our mind regretting something we've we've done that wasn't maybe so wholesome in the past, or maybe something we should have done and didn't do. And then we just are racked with remorse. And so that just causes a lot of agitation or restlessness and hard to settle down for our practice. So Ajahn Tiradano said that the cause for restlessness and remorse is unwise attention to unsettledness of the mind. So if some restlessness or unsettledness happens, we want to be doing our best to say, be with our meditation object, and then not sort of allow that in. But then if we start focusing on it, then what we focus on tends to increase or build. And so it's this being distracted by it and focusing on it that allows it to intensify. Now, it may be that this unsettledness of mind is due to one of the hindrances arising. Like desire, if we want something, and of course, if it's something we want, it means we don't have it now, then that can cause agitation. If we're sort of obsessing about, I want this, how do I get this? I can't be happy unless I get this. That can cause a lot of unsettledness. And we've already gone over all the antidotes to that. So then if it is a hindrance, then just review the talks on what do I do for this particular hindrance. If it's ill will, that's getting agitated by something you don't like in the moment. And so if you're focusing on that and that's agitating you, then again, re-listen to the talks on ill will and institute the antidotes for ill will. We're probably not going to be restless with the third hindrance of drowsiness and lethargy, because it's the exact opposite. So that's going to have its own issues, but it's probably not going to cause restlessness. And then the last hindrance that we'll be covering in a few weeks is doubt. And here, in this Buddhist context, we're talking about doubt. Are these about the teachings? Is what the Buddha taught? Is it going to be helpful to me? Is it true? Is it the right path for me? That's the kind of doubt. And so that can cause some agitation as well. And so there'll be specific antidotes to that. Okay, so now say it isn't a hindrance that's causing the unsettledness of mind. So what are the other sort of usual causes? So the first one is putting in too much exertion, too much effort into a practice of stilling the mind. It's always a balance. The Buddha talks about 5 faculties of the mind: faith, energy, mindfulness, samadhi, which is the stillness, and wisdom. And these have to be kept in balance. So just watch yourself. Are you putting in too much effort or exertion, and is that causing agitation? Second potential cause is any excessive energy, physical or mental. So, being in a really stimulating conversation, or exercise, or watching a movie that's gets you riled up, so anything in that area. The next cause is using our willpower. So when we use our willpower, we tend to generate an idea of what it is that we want, and then we're just with our willpower powering through to it, and then not making any attention to what's happening at this moment. Is my pushing through not being appropriate to what the conditions are in this moment? And so that can, so then you're fighting against reality, and you're not going to win against reality. So really look and see, am I just using my willpower and just trying to power through? Ajahn Dhamma says that too much faith can cause restlessness. So, as I was mentioning last week, when we first start applying the teachings of the Buddha, we usually get very dramatic results, because we're going from a super agitated brain, bringing it way down. And then we're like, oh, good. And then you want to become an evangelist and tell the world and convert all your family and friends. And maybe they don't want to be converted, or maybe it's just not the proper time or place or whatever. So then that can lead to sort of agitation. So we certainly want to share the teachings, but we have to be appropriate about it and make sure that the people we're sharing with want to have it shared. Now the next one, I'm not too clear on it, but Ajahn Dhamma said that wisdom can lead to restlessness, because say in our practice we gain some insights. He said in some cases that can really stoke people's ego, and then they can feel like really special, like, I got it. And he said that can lead to restlessness. So I'm not super clear about that one, but anyway, that's what he said can happen. Restlessness can also come from no longer getting really major results in our practice, or losing the joy. It just sort of becomes a stale kind of practice. And then that can lead to some restless searching for something else, like, and suffering, of course, can cause restlessness. If you're in some physical pain while you're doing sitting, you can become restless. So you have to remember that the goal of our practice is to calm the mind, not to restlessly endure discomfort. So if you're in pain, take care of your body, mindfully shift your posture, or do some walking instead of sitting, or do lying down meditation or something, but take care of your body. If this restless suffering, so if the suffering is mental, well, then we need to do some investigation. And then the final cause that Ajahn Dhamma talks about is stimulus hunger. We're really stopping a lot of stimulation when we sit down on the cushion. And so sometimes your mind will throw up all kinds of memories and problems to solve and all kinds of things to entertain you. So what are our antidotes to restlessness? So the first thing is to frequently give wise attention to calmness of mind. And maybe you need to seek out some calm situations, some relaxing activities, being with calm people, or in a calm environment. Walking meditation, really, really good if you're agitated. And I use this a lot in my practice as a psychiatrist, when I'd have people coming in just bouncing off the ceiling with agitation. If the weather allowed me, I'd just take them outside and we do running meditation, just really focusing on, the breath and the footsteps and everything. And that just, within a few minutes, you could get somebody from bouncing off the walls to just really quite calm down. And then you go from the running to the walking, and then eventually get back to sitting. So just doing a stepwise down, but just doing something sort of physically exerting. Don't do something that's violent. I know when I first started my practice, they had a punching bag on the unit, but I read about it, and sometimes when people would be punching the punching bag, it would actually intensify their anger or whatever they were trying to get out punching the punching bag. So do something physical that's neutral, like running up and down stairs, or skipping rope, or running around the block or something. a neutral activity, not something that's reminiscent of violence, like punching your pillow or punching a punching bag. Then another lovely suggestion that Ajahn Dhammo gave is like when it's your routine to come and sit on your cushion, instead of immediately sitting down, maybe do the 3 bows to just bring to mind, the Buddha, mindfulness, the teachings, your gratitude for the teachings, and then for the Sangha. And then maybe do some chanting, and then sit down. So then it's just sort of, again, it's kind of stepping you down, bringing you gradually sort of quieter and quieter. Or he said you could, if you have a little altar area, you could like refresh the flowers or tidy it up or whatever. Another way to step down. Or he said maybe read a sutta first. So basically, with agitation, we want to use the 3 calming factors of the awakening factors. And the 3 calming factors are tranquility, samadhi, which is stillness, and equanimity. So tranquility, he said, is helped by eating nutritious food, having a congenial climate, suitable posture, avoiding spending time with restless people if that's possible, associating with calm people, that helps with tranquility. Equanimity is staying calm in the midst of turmoil. I'm not clear on how much of that we can make happen or how much of that is a result of our practice. I know I've certainly experienced it as a result of my practice. When I'm not feeling it, I can think about it. But can I make it happen? I don't know. But definitely our practice, that's a result of our practice for sure. If we feel like our practice is stagnating, and I mentioned this with the last hindrance, in a way that may be a good sign, because it means that we've really incorporated the teachings. Like at first they're all fresh and new and it's exciting and we're having all these big changes. But then it becomes a part of our life, which is great. It's become part of our day-to-day life. But then we're not noticing it so much anymore because it's just part of life instead of something new. So just have patience, make sure you have continuity of your practice, and then you'll shift into sort of a deeper level of practice. And this is where you can start looking at that not self aspect. And not self just means, there's something here. Not self means there's not a solid, in cement, never changing aspect to ourselves. It just means that we're just flowing, just changing all the time, due to causes and conditions. And a really beautiful way to work with this is when you catch yourself saying, I want this, I don't want this, like I want things to be this way or whatever. Then when you hear the word I, then just, change that and just say, oh, this desire has arisen, or, oh, this anger or this frustration has arisen. And that allows you to sort of stand back, not be so embroiled in it. You get to sort of stand back a little bit and not take it so personally, like to realize, oh, this is here because of causes and conditions. It's not some inherent part of me. It's just here because of causes and conditions. And this really can take your practice to a nice, deeper level. And of course, we're always wanting to look at, is what what's happening or what you're doing at the moment, is it wholesome or unwholesome? And we're wanting to we're wanting to change the causes and conditions to move us towards the wholesome and away from the unwholesome. If the issue for you is stimulus hunger, your mind's just throwing up things to entertain you, then just see if you can just take some time to experience the joy, the gentle, quiet joy that comes from peacefulness. Remember when I first started, one of my early teachers with Thich Nhat Hanh, he says, everybody wants peace. And then when they get it, they feel bored. So it's just taking some time to just realize there's this really gentle, subtle joy that comes with just feeling very peaceful.
I need to kind of throw one little piece
Yes.
there, because Buddha talks about our reaction to the various feeling tones. So
Yes.
if we feel pleasure, there's that push to go get it.
Yeah.
If we feel unpleasant feeling, there's the push away. If we feel neutral tone, which is what you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
what does he say we do? How do we react to that?
Mm-hmm.
We ignore it.
Mm.
And we go distract ourselves because it's boring. Instead of understanding how nice it is to not be pushed around by pleasure and pain.
Yeah.
That's key. That's really key.
Not having, thank you. Thank you. And then finally, for remorse, how do we take care of remorse? Well, act virtuously. And when we slip up, and for most of us, it's with our speech, it's with our words. Don't be too hard on yourself. I mean, this is part of being human. Just say, I'd like to do that differently next time. And think about how you can maybe have a little bit more gentle speech the next time. Okay. We have time for questions, comments. This is a biggie, I think, restlessness. Yes.
For me, what works best in restlessness is use the mantra content on the out breath. And just keep repeating that for a while on the out breath, and it seems to settle the restlessness down.
Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing. I know Ajahn Viradama, who's one of our elders, elder monks in Canada, he's saying if you're feeling restless and you're in your sitting practice, he said, don't move. Which sometimes is really hard. But I think what he's asking us to do is to investigate it. Because if we move, which is sort of distracting ourselves, then we're giving our idea, oh, that's the way I deal with it, is just by distracting myself. But then we're never really investigating and looking into why is this arising. But if you can experience it and just really investigate as it's happening, we can sort of cut it off at the roots instead of just it being there all the time, and we're just having to run around distracting this way, distracting that way.
I feel like there's a difference, or I don't know the difference between toughing it out and not. Like there's this subtle difference between the two of not giving attention to my numb legs, in my sitting. Yeah, so that I want to make a big difference, and I tried to say this earlier, between physical pain or restlessness due to physical stuff and then what's going on in our brain. So this don't move is about the brain. Okay, if you've got numb legs, please take care of your numb leg. You're squishing a nerve, and I always remember from medical school, one of the lectures I had gone to was the
the teacher who was teaching us, he had this patient who was at a bar, got drunk, passed out with his arm over the chair or something, and it had squished, his nerve there, and he wasn't taking care of it because he was passed out. And, he hurt that nerve. I mean, nerves grow back, but like a millimeter a month or something, really slow. So he had an arm that didn't function. So please, when you have numb legs, adjust your posture. Don't tough it out. Yeah, we're talking about mental agitation here.
Yeah, I think that with both the physical and the mental, I find sometimes I'm trained to tough it out from my upbringing. So to unlearn that and to be kind to myself while investigating. It's like very difficult, subtle.
Yeah. And maybe, if you have that tendency, just say, I'm going to investigate for like 5 minutes, and if it hasn't sort of settled by then give yourself a break, get up, go distract yourself, do something else. But, then you could gradually, it's just like when we're starting meditation, like when my first meditation was 10 minutes, and, because I didn't have any skills, I wanted to run screaming out of the room. It was so difficult. And so after that first weekend retreat, then I did get some methods of how to deal with that brain of mine. But what I did was I did walking meditation, and then I would start with 5, I'd walk for half an hour or something, and then do 5 minutes of sitting. And then I just gradually 6 minutes of sitting. So, just gradually worked myself up with the ability to sit longer and longer. Yeah, but definitely be kind to yourself. Yeah, but again, it's the middle way. If we're too kind and don't put any investigation or effort, then we're not going to move. But we don't want to be, harming ourselves, because the Buddha did that for 6 years. He really tortured his body, thinking that might be the way. And then he figured out he was going to die. It wasn't the way. And he'd also lived in the palace. He lived a life of luxury, and that wasn't the answer to the end of suffering. And so he's teaching us the middle way. So we're always wanting to come back to the middle way.
Visualization.
Sarah, you're tiny. Do you have, I can't see too much. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, a lot of my restlessness comes out of my endless to-do list.
Yes.
So, like, what do I need to get done after I'm finished meditating?
Right.
And I'll say to myself, I'm just going to let that go. And then my mind says, but it's important. And then I'll forget it, on and on. Someone suggested, do your to-do list before you sit down.
Yes.
But my mind still wants to throw stuff up at me to add to that list. It's crazy making.
Yeah. What I tend to do is I just say later. That's my little mantra. I'll just gently say later. But if it's really agitating, just have your list right there and just quickly write it down, so like if you're afraid you're going to forget it. And then that's just really agitating you. So maybe to start with, you could just have your list there. And then if you have to add one word thing.
Yeah, then I'd probably devote 5 seconds to it instead of like 2 minutes if I just wrote it down and then let it go.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah, and Bodhipala is going to add something here.
I'm going to try. Yeah, of course, almost everybody in the Western world will have experienced that, Sarah. And I think you were expressing that, even if I sort of know in theory I have it under control, I have a complete list, I could ignore it for a while, the mind keeps coming back to it. Well, that's showing you just how much your life is run on that principle, right? The mind doesn't quickly or easily let go of what it repeats over and over and over again. The Buddha said, whatever you put your mind on a regular basis, that becomes its tendency. So this really illustrates the need, or if one wishes to arrive and really come to meditation and have it grow, the rest of your life matters. If one spends 24/7 minus 2 hours a day being driven by the to-do list, 2 hours isn't even going to touch that, basically. So I would say you want to undercut that. So this is where wise attention and unwise attention comes into play as a primary way to look at the hindrances. So this tendency in the mind, you have to divorce it from the content. This is really key, right? Everybody has a to-do list. Every single person has a different to-do list and a different set of things that they personally feel are important and have to be dealt with and must be dealt with. And I can't be happy until it's dealt with is the underlying assumption in there too. So the content, you've got to somehow say that content is not important really, like it's just the particular conditioning of this life. It's the story of this particular set of circumstances. What I really want to get at here is the tendency in the mind, the principle, not the content. I want to learn how to not run my life on the principle of I have a list of important things that have to be done and I can't really be happy until they're done. It's really key. So how does one undercut that? By giving value to peace, by giving value to orderly, not overwhelmed, not too engaged, not too entangled, not too involved life. But our entire culture and our upbringing tells us that our worth and our value is completely entangled in what we produce, how we are seen by others. Peace isn't in the mix there anywhere. So that's kind of coming back to Ajahn Tiradama's very simple, what we were talking about earlier. Pay attention to peace, pay attention to the sign of peace in the world, in your world, as much as humanly possible. Every kind of relax as much as possible. It doesn't mean you don't do things, right? We mistakenly think that somehow if I relax, things won't get done. And that's not the case. It's marrying ease and effort together and taking the tension out of the doing, if that's any help at all.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
You bet.
Oh, yes.
Well, I wanted to say something that's practical when you're starting your meditation, if you're early on in meditation, you get this restless mind. If you start investigating it, then you're not meditating and your mind's going out this way. So what I do if I have a restless mind and it's just not identifying really what it is, I just go back and start over. Start trying to practice it and start from it and go again, and that thought maybe settle, or you pay a lot of attention to it while you're learning to meditate, or to me that just breaks up your meditation. I just think have that thought, oh, I'm going to remember what this is because you have this restless mind. I'm going to give it enough attention to remember, and if it doesn't settle while you're in that space and you stay restless, I just go back, start with the breath again, and maybe get to that same restless place. It's not I like going on about what caused it. Just go back again and start over.
So what I'll just comment on this because we've talked about this before. So what you're saying is sort of like our first two steps, and then the antidotes are sort of the third. So if the restlessness is just sort of a mumbling, but it's over there and you're still able to focus on your breath or whatever your meditation object is, then you just ignore that and stay with your meditation object. If it gives you a little pull away and you just go hello there and then come back and you're able to do that, then great. So I think this is what the phase you're talking about. But if it's just like got you, and there's no way that you can be, then this is where we're putting in the antidotes. Yeah, so I think if you can just bring yourself away from it or not get embroiled in it, then this is what you're saying.
Well,
So
yes.
what we're talking about here today is, I mean, with these antidotes is when it's more intense than that, and then you have to take stronger action. And then I just want to go back to what Bodhi Paula was saying. Another thing that's helpful to me when I sort of get tense about things that have to be done, I just think about being on my deathbed and thinking, how important this is going to be. Or when I'm dying, like how important was that in this overall scheme of life or something. So that's another sort of little trick that I use to help me sort of de-emphasize the raging importance of something on a to-do list. Okay, we should probably pause here. We just have a few minutes left, and we'll end with our Brahma Vihara of Karuna, compassion. So first of all, bring to mind someone you know who has great physical or mental suffering. And while being aware of their particular difficulties, direct these phrases to them. May you be free of your pain and sorrow. May you find peace. And now we send the phrases to ourselves. May I be free of pain and sorrow. May I find peace. And now bring to mind someone who's been very supportive of you and send the phrases to them. May you be free of your pain and sorrow. May you find peace. Now bring to mind a neutral person, a person you don't have strong feelings of love or hate towards. And send the phrases to them. May you be free of your pain and sorrow. May you find peace. Now bring to mind someone you have a difficult relationship with and send the phrases to them. May you too be free of your pain and sorrow. May you too find peace. May all beings be free of pain and sorrow. May all beings find peace. Remember that all beings face great potential suffering, no matter how fortunate their immediate circumstances may be. This meditation does not eliminate suffering. What we are doing is being able to acknowledge suffering, to open to it and respond to it with a tenderness of heart, which allows us to join with all beings and realize we're never alone. May the merit of our practice be shared with all sentient beings, named and unnamed. Lynn, Claire, Lise, Therese, Russell. May all beings be well and happy. Thank you, everyone.